The financial crisis has seen the words banks, bankers and hated become almost synonymous. Major high street banking brands that were once trusted and respected are now acutely disliked by some of their customers. But at the same time, brands like Ryanair seem to make a virtue out of being unloved. So are there some brands we love to hate? A new book, Bold: How to Be Brave in Business and Win, says the way that we're looking at brands and business itself is changing. Its author is Sean Smith, and he joins me now. Whatever we say about brands, Sean, isn't it really all just about price now?
Do you know, I don't think it's about price so much as value. What consumers look for in a recession is value, and that means the market becomes polarized. So, for example, on the high end of the market, you've got brands like Burberry doing very well at the moment because they provide high-quality products at a price point which is suitable for their customers. At the other end of the market, of course, you've got brands indeed like Ryanair, cheap as chips, very low priced, which customers are prepared to go for because they're looking to fly on a budget.
Ryanair, you mentioned, it almost revels in treating customers badly, but isn't there some places even customers won't go, where they say, I've had enough of being treated like this and this brand?
Well, Michael O'Leary, the CEO, and Ryanair have been very clever. I mean, they have a low-cost strategy, and what Michael O'Leary does with his outrageous statements is to dramatize their positioning in the marketplace, to dramatize the fact that they are very low price. And what that does is to suppress people's expectations. So even though you don't pay very much, when you fly on them, actually, it's not as bad as sometimes you think it might be. So actually, they exceed expectations. Interestingly enough, they're one of the few airlines making money. They've made 25% year-on-year growth, so their performance is actually very good. The question for me, Steve, is whether they can sustain that when people have a bit more money in their pockets.
Okay, well, let's translate that experience then to the big banking brands. Are they going to have to accept, perhaps, that they're never going to be liked and maybe even play up to that image in some way?
Well, I think it's certainly true that the financial services sector has to change, that consumers are increasingly unwilling to go along, if you will, with the self-serving nature of many banks. But there are some banks that have very high levels of customer regard and advocacy. Metro Bank, albeit it's pretty boutique, it's pretty small, 12 branches I think in the UK, but they're getting very good customer responses for their retail banks. First Direct, of course, is a well-loved brand, online banking, one of my favourite particular brands. And in the States, you've got banks like Umpqua Bank serving the local community. So there are some examples of financial services organisations that get it. I think some of the big brands have to follow suit because I think people are just not prepared to, as I say, go along with their self-serving ways for much longer.
We'll touch on some of your tips for improving your branding a little bit later, but let's just look at social media because we're all tweeting, we're all on Facebook. Is this an area where banks and other brands are going to be reaching out into to try and connect with us as customers?
Well, I don't think they can afford not to. And when you look at what's happening with social media now, recent research by Right Now found, for example, that consumers, 78% of consumers are influenced by what other people say online, what peers are saying online, and yet only 36% are influenced by marketing, traditional marketing. So we just literally believe social media more than we do traditional advertising and marketing. 50% of consumers that tweet, for example, or blog about brands don't receive any response from those brands. I think that has to change. And financial services organisations have to start listening to those customers and responding. Otherwise, they're going to get left behind.
The subtitle of your book is Being Brave in Business and Winning. So are you really saying there that these big brands are going to have to take more chances, be a bit more edgy when they're trying to reach out to us?
Well, I think there's a difference between being edgy or reckless and being bold. Give you an example. If you take Virgin Galactic, Virgin Galactic has launched its VSS Enterprise, its private spaceship that will be taking passengers into space at the end of this year, beginning of next year. That is a bold move. Taking on NASA, taking people into space is a very bold venture, but it's not reckless. They're going to enormous lengths to design the spacecraft and the processes to be as safe as possible. So bold, not reckless. If we take the telecommunications space, O2, the mobile phone carrier, some years ago, as you know, took the Millennium Dome, licensed it as the O2 Arena. It's now the most successful music venue in the world. Why did they do that? Well, because they wanted to create value for their customers by giving them access to music and concerts and so on in a way that other brands couldn't. Bold, not reckless.
So if brand's about more than just a logo, it's about an experience, what trends are you seeing? What are we going to be seeing happening in the next few years?
Well, in the research that we did for the book, we identified a number of things, but let me just net it out, if you will, by summing up three of them. We found that these brands that are transforming their markets do three things. The first is they stand up for something. So they have a purpose beyond profit. And I think increasingly we're going to see consumers gravitating towards those organizations, those brands with whom they identify, with whom the values they identify with. So having that purpose beyond profit. Secondly, they stand out. They stand out by creating value which is distinct from competitors. I've mentioned O2, for example. Another example is Tesco. They have a little app which enables you to find wines that you might like. So it's about curating, brands curating for customers. And the third thing that these brands do is they stand firm. And by that I mean they create a culture, a very strong culture, and they create a community of enthusiasts. And those enthusiasts are both the customers as well as the employees too. And it's that culture, that enthusiasm, that sustains them against competitive threats. And that's why I think as we come out of the recession, Ryanair may be in trouble.
So if there's one thing these businesses really need to think about in the future as far as their brand's concerned, what would it be?
I think it would be this, that branding as we go forward is not about the logo any longer. It's not about the font or the typeface. It's about everything that you do as a business.
Sean Smith, thanks very much for joining us today.